On the streets, on the waterfront, and deep underground, everyone's grappling with plans to hit fast forward on major capital projects.
Fast track, how crucial was that?
It's fundamental.
Fast track and one-stop shop on the face of it are a pretty good idea.
Our city, especially post-COVID, has taken a massive economic hit.
Ultimately, it's about how quickly can you get the economy to start firing.
The stakes are high.
So this is about $9 million worth of gold and silver, which is heading to Australia for further refining.
Do the benefits beat the costs?
There are clearly environmental issues which have to be considered, but there's a lot of jobs at stake.
For some, the wheels have already come off the fast-track approval process.
Extremely frustrating, not to mention hugely costly, not only for us, our company, but also for all of New Zealand.
Leaving the coalition scrambling to make more changes before an election year begins.
So we're just making a few tweaks to it.
This bill is being sold as a technical minor fix. It's not.
Will they fix the fast-track or push it just a little too far?
Just a hint of desperation from the government.
Let's begin with the poster child for the Fast Track Approval Act. On a sunny spring morning in September, we're at the port of Auckland. The PM is basking in the glow of yellow high-vis, and the minister driving this change, Chris Bishop, is celebrating the pace at which the port plans to start digging into its balance sheet.
We're spending 70 million on the wharf, probably about 30 million on the related area around the cruise terminal, and then another 100 million on dredging and the Ferguson North Extension. So overall, 200 million investment.
Iwi Ngāti Whātua Ōrākei, a certain mana whenua over this area, and they are right behind the fast-track plans.
There's no piece of paper showing we gifted, leased or sold the seabed here. That said, we've always had a relationship with this port. The wairua, the feeling of the city has really taken a hit, and we are looking for economic development projects that can reignite and catalyse our city's mojo again. And this is one of them, and so that's why we thought it was important to not get in the way.
Contractors will roll in here as soon as the VIPs leave.
There's 300 metres that's got to be done, so they're going to start that this afternoon, which will be great.
Checking in later, abundant signs Fast Track is firing, here anyway. From a slightly panic-inducing perspective, high atop one of the biggest cranes, we can see preparation for a longer container wharf is underway. And back down on the ground, the first piles arriving for the cruise ship berth.
I was standing on this wharf about 6 weeks ago. The little blue digger down the end was lifting a ceremonial scoop of dirt out of the ground with the Prime Minister at the controls. You can see a lot of work has happened. None of it would have started for at least 2 years without this project getting fast-track approval.
More than 150 projects are lining up or already in the process.
It's a complex regulatory regime, and the other thing about it is it's fast track but also one-stop shop. So it's RMA, heritage, wildlife, archaeology, all the different things you need. It depends on the project, but all the things you need to actually get stuff done, it's all into the one process. So that essentially has to port across all of those different statutory and regulatory regimes into the one act, and then there's a whole lot of process around that as well.
Business Desk founding editor Patrick Smelly sees a bigger picture.
What was the problem that it was trying to fix?
It's the same problem as the Labor government tried to fix, or the previous government tried to fix, which was that the Resource Management Act process has tended to take too long. And rather than completely amend the RMA, which is an enormous process in itself, the preference has been to say, well, for certain projects that we deem, for whatever reason, national interest, political interest, whatever, are important and need a kick, we'll put those into this faster process.
But not everything is getting that kick. Auckland's pace is in stark contrast with its largest rival.
If you look at what's going on at the Port of Tauranga, they've been 6 years trying to get approval. We were 6 months. This is game-changing.
Tauranga's Stellar Passage project has been in a legal limbo. Expanding its wharf on the Mount Maunganui side faces fierce objections. Ngāti Kuku Hapu leads that opposition. Its marae, Whareroa, is holding the ground between the water, the port and the runway at Tauranga Airport. The hapu success in the Environment Court steered the port into the fast-track process when that became an option.
I do want to stress, though, that Port of Tauranga is in no way trying to avoid environmental responsibilities by trying to speed up the resource consent process. In fact, the Environment Court actually acknowledged in its decision that from a Western science perspective, the development will have a minor effect in the short term during construction and a negligible effect in the long term. We have just been unable to reach agreement with the multiple hapu parties on the appropriate level of mitigation we need to pay for the cultural effects of the development.
And unable to get the result they want from the Fast Track Approvals Act either. The rush to pass that law last year left holes. It left out 5 words naming part of this project in a schedule to the Act. That exposed the Port of Tauranga to a successful judicial review that has halted plans on both of its wharves and in the channel between them.
This is critical infrastructure, and it's absolutely essential for an efficient two-way trade for New Zealand. And the delays to construction are inhibiting our plan to increase efficiency, reduce carbon emissions. So actually, ultimately, it's the New Zealand economy and all of New Zealanders that suffer from this delay.
Making Port of Tauranga the new poster child, one of them anyway, for why the fast track needs fixing, apparently.
There are a few remedial kind of process-based tweaks we want to make to the Act to just speed it up a bit more.
I fundamentally disagree with the proposition that this is just a few tweaks, some minor amendments.
The Environmental Defence Society has been burning some midnight renewable energy to get a submission ready as Parliament considers rapid changes to a law it passed less than a year ago.
I think that we could agree that not everybody should have a say on everything, but there is a continuum of activities, and at some point when you get to these large infrastructure projects, there has to be an opportunity for an independent panel to assess the application and make its assessment of who it should invite in. And that's currently the case, and we're happy with that. And we have been invited into 2 processes that we have participated in. The problem with the bill is that it cuts out all of that discretion from the panel.
Street protests greeted the first attempt at a fast track, where a big worry was too much direct ministerial influence. The new amendment would make room for something called a Government Policy Statement, or GPS.
There are absolutely no guardrails on what a GPS might look like. It doesn't have to be consulted on. There are no statutory criteria around what it might look like. So it could be as much as ministers deciding that all coal mines in New Zealand are of national benefit, or gold mines, or anything of that nature. It overrides the independent assessment of a project's benefits. And it basically brings in an element of ministerial influence into the decision-making process.
That's also shown up as officials running Fast Track try to implement both the law and what lawmakers want from it.
The thing that was really bugging the Cabinet, and particularly Jane Jones, I think, was that there's a process, a so-called completion process, which meant that when somebody puts in their fast track application with thousands and thousands of pages of expert evidence and so on, they had 3 weeks to say whether or not it was complete. If it wasn't complete, the way the EPA was looking at it was saying, okay, the clock starts again. So there was a potential for the clock to keep being reset and reset and reset until you got to completion, and you could easily see a situation where fast track becomes slow track again, just by different means.
That completeness issue hit home here in Waihi for gold miner Oceanagold.
We lodged initially in March and it ended up being May when we were found to be complete. We had to add about 14 words to make that clear, and repeat those words at different points in the application and then re-lodge it with the same reports. So it was, I would describe it as a technicality, but it did lose us some weeks in the process.
Here's why they're chasing fast track approval. We're in the Gold Room, a very secure location inside the processing plant at Oceanagold's Waihi mining operation. We've been allowed to watch and film under strict control as they are pouring molten gold and silver for export.
$9 million, and it took about 15 minutes. It's the quickest money I've ever seen made, except obviously it took 20,000 tonnes of rock in a whole operation just to get it this far.
One of the workers bends my ear to point out both of his adult children are still here in Waihi thanks to the work from mining, while in other small towns they've watched next generations leaving. Oceanagold has applied for fast-track approval to keep mining much more of this.
That is 24% gold, and that is $1.4 million in my hands right now. I don't think they're going to let me get out of here with this. This is 200 ounces. They reckon they're going to pull 1.6 million ounces out of the ground north of here if they get that fast track consent.
This is a project that's going to spend over $1 billion in capital in New Zealand dollars. It's going to spend over $2 billion in expenditure generally within New Zealand. And it's going to deliver several hundred jobs to begin with, and then we're going to see that ramp up as we start mining.
Oceanagold has been chasing this expansion for a decade since it acquired the mining operation, trying to solve a problem: how to extract that gold from deep beneath Coromandel Forest Park.
Eventually, the existing mining here is due to finish in 2032. So this project takes that out another 10 years to 2042. So we're looking to be mining at what we've modelled and what we've presented for the fast track panel at $2,000 US. So that's about $3,500 New Zealand an ounce, $5 billion of exports. As we sit here today, the gold price is $7,000 in New Zealand terms. So a lot of exports coming into New Zealand once that mining starts.
Oceanagold wants to tunnel in two directions at once from farmland just outside the park, blasting and drilling for 11 kilometres in total to run a two-lane road for trucks hundreds of metres below the surface to connect their plant with the ore body.
So what's on the conservation estate will be underground. It'll be the mine itself and the tunnel that reaches the mine itself. But there's up to 4 times that those workings come up to the surface for air holes, which have a combined area of something like a large traffic island. So it's not a lot of land involved in that.
Oceanagold is so confident of approval it's already on target to spend $70 million seeking that and laying power, water and fibre to support the project it hopes to begin before the calendar flicks over to 2026. It's a stark contrast with status quo.
Taking 8 months to get a permit to count frogs, and it was taking 20 months to get a permit to monitor water in the ground. So 3 months to get a panel appointed who then take about 6 months to get a decision. That's pretty good.
If you hadn't had the fast track process, what was this, just a non-starter?
I like to think it might have happened many years later. I think many years is probably right.
Does the fast track come from it being a one-stop?
It's those things together. Something that's simpler and less complex and involves less duplication also takes less time.
The Forest Park is on land administered by the Department of Conservation, home to the critically endangered Archie's frog. Objectors also fear mining will change waterways or contaminate them. Oceanagold needs to expand its containment for tailings, and it wants to open a new pit right beside its plant to mine there too. Is mining part of what's driving the urge to fix the fast track with an amendment bill?
I think that for the majority of projects, the fast track process will be quite smooth. But for some projects, it will be a really a tough decision to whether it goes which way, decline or approve. And I think that for those ones, which is some of the more intensive extractive projects, for instance, that's I think where this bill is coming from, to edge those projects closer to approval.
So it's to fix mining rather than to fix the fast track. My word's not yours.
Your word's right.
This Parliament's putting a lot of law through very quickly. Underlying all of it, there's just a hint of the government saying we have to pull every possible lever because this economy has been flatlining for so damn long, irrespective of whose fault that is, whether they did it to themselves by stopping a whole lot of infrastructure early on in their term, which I think is actually one of the things they most regret. But they need to see some runs on the board, and this legislative process is one of the ways that they can accelerate that.
Oceanagold expects a decision from the independent panel on its application a week before Christmas.
What if it's bad news?
I might not go into work on December the 19th.
By then, the Infrastructure Minister hopes to have passed that amendment to the Fast Track Act.
And we also need to fix the Port of Tauranga issue, which has been immensely frustrating for the government. So we will fix that issue as part of that as well. It's working pretty well. The Act works. It's just to make it even better.
The question is, where in all of these processes, is where's the right balance? If the consensus is the balance has swung too far in the favour of every type of objection, then inevitably you're going to see a swing back the other way. That's really, I mean, you can say that's a loss of democratic rights. I'd say that's the political process at work to some degree, and if the fast track process is widely hated, people will make their views about that known at the next election.
One political party is staking a lot on this change.
You're seeing a lot of the influence of New Zealand First. Picking winners has become a dirty word, but if you look around the world, it's the political movements that are being successful are those which are taking a more nationalistic, more directive approach to what gets done and what doesn't get done. And as Jones keeps saying to his opponents, see you at the ballot box.